And the two main objectives that we have considered in the outreach activities for now are native seeds conservation and natural farming practices. Both of them are extremely important and dear to all of us, directly or indirectly, because they concern us with respect to food. And we would like, just like we would like a very pollution free environment, we would all want to have our food to be absolutely in its natural form without any chemicals in it. So how do we go about it? And I, being a person who was mostly in the urban space, I was curious about this space, and I thought this would be a good start point for me to understand how does food reach us. And also, as my role as a mother and environmental professional, I was very curious about how can we reduce the overall impacts of chemicals in our living spaces and our food. So, a little bit about native seeds. Native seeds are known, or are seeds which have been passed down through generations. They have been conserved by farmers themselves, and they, with every crop that they take, they have been conserving a few seeds which they use for the next year's cropping season. And after that cropping season, they select the best seeds that could be conserved for the next year's cropping season, and this goes on for generation after generation, and it becomes an heirloom seed. Unlike today, most of the seeds are not are purchased. They, one goes to the market, finds a seed company and picks up the seeds. This was not the scenario which happened long ago. We had our own seeds. And my work is in rice out here. At one point of time, India was known to have more than 110,000 rice varieties alone. So this, the theme for this year's World Environment Day being conserving biodiversity. So this is the kind of biodiversity that existed in rice alone. So one can imagine what what could be the expanse of the diversity that exists in every other seed variety. Now, why these seeds? These seeds, they are extremely resilient to crops, to environmental changes, water stress, and that's why they work well. They are extremely flavorful also. They are aromatic. Some of them have medicinal properties. Some of them are rich in iron and calcium, and also rich in micronutrients. And they, because they have naturally evolved in the natural space, they have also adapted themselves to disease and pest attack. And for these reasons, they do not require any artificial inputs. The and uh, so overall, we can see that the addition uh, use of native seeds not only helps us being in the nutritional aspect, but it also helps the farmer to reduce the input costs, because earlier the farmers conserve their own varieties and use them for the next season. But these days, they have to set aside a particular fund for purchase of seeds, which are primarily the hybrids, which a big come with a big promise of very high yields. But of course, increasingly we are finding that the yields do not really measure up to their promises, and we shall see with the course of the talk today. And they also, hybrids also require fertilizers and pesticides, because unlike the native seeds, they do not have that kind of resilience. They do not have resistance to diseases and pests. All that they can probably do is give a yield, that too under certain conditions. So we can move to the next slide now. So with this thought in mind, we took a handful of seeds from the Bio Center at Jawahar, which is looked after by Sanjay Patil. And we started out because when I inquired with the neighborhood, our farmers had no seeds whatsoever. None of the native seeds were still there with them. They got lost because too many of our farmers rely on the modern hybrid varieties. And next video, next slide. So while we are doing while we are taking our trials with the farmers outside, we are also trying to bring this activity to our school and engage with our student community. So these are our fields, the rice fields, which is now the season. These are the seedlings that are prepared. About 40 odd varieties of seedlings of different varieties are prepared over here. The younger children participate in looking after them, watering them, nurturing them, and the older ones would be more involved in terms of what are the yields, understanding the data, collecting data and observing the growth characteristics. Next slide. The type of farming, now a lot is said about that when you get into the native seeds, they went out of fashion because their yields were on the lower side. So I was aware of this, and then we did a little bit of research. What are the techniques by increasing the yield? And we came upon this technique, which is of SRI, System of Rice Intensification, which gives phenomenal yields. And it's very interesting, this particular technique. It was developed in Madagascar by one of the church fathers out there who was engaged, who had been doing trials. And the technique is very interesting, that you use almost 1/10 to 1/40th of what seeds you would otherwise use in conventional farming practices. So suppose for an acre, you would be requiring 25 kg to 40 kgs of seed material. Now, under SRI technique, you would not be using more than 1 or 2 kgs. Now, this is a fantastic thing. In case you're purchasing seeds, your input costs suddenly come down. And if you're not purchasing seeds, whatever grain you are saving will be available to you for food purposes, for consumption purposes. And these were our trials which we took. Now, this is something that, when you're doing planting this with this technique, it is done so sparsely that you can barely see the seedlings. And when the crop is in full bloom, this is the kind of view that you would have. So it's very interesting that when you plant too many seedlings at a time, they use all their day, they tend to use their energies in competing with each other for resources. And when you are giving them enough space to grow, just like our children, you find that they flourish much more. Instead of competing and with each other, they are just using all the energies in growth. um, Next. Next. Yeah. So here are our total varieties over here. This is the rice packs over here. As on date, we have about 70 odd varieties of rice, which we are conserving. About 5 to 6 varieties of wheat, which are again heirloom wheat varieties. They are also extremely rich in nutrients. Some of one particular wheat variety is enriched in folic acid, which is extremely important for mothers, young mothers, or those who are carrying children, and also young children. And a number of millet seeds, vegetable seeds, oil seeds, and pulses. Next slide. Our efforts are also on at campus to grow other vegetables and herbs such as lemongrass and some of the unusual varieties. Now, this particular flower is agasti or hadka, or vegetable hummingbird. It grows on a tree, but its flowers are edible as a vegetable. And it's very interesting, like when something grows on a tree and you are able to harvest it, the footprint of the tree is very small. So the space occupied by a tree is much smaller than when you would grow it on a land, on a crop basis. So we must also be looking at different sources from where we can get our food stuff from. Tree and you are able to harvest it, the footprint of the tree is very small. So the space occupied by a tree is much also be looking at. Now here is an image from our the training programs that we conduct with the farmers, neighborhood farmers. We have weekly meetings with our farmers, and we are continuously talking with them about the benefits, the nutritional benefits of native grains, and the health benefits of of practicing chemical free farming. So this happens on a weekly basis, this engagement. And for most farmers, the current generation who are in their 30s and 40s, it is a new thing. Because they actually grew up in the chemical farming phase. In the 1960s, chemical farming entered our country, and most of these people were born after that. It is their parents who may be in their 70s and 90s who knew the earlier way of doing things, and they also, they recall with, fond memories about how the grains used to be far more tastier and far more nutritious, and they were able to go on you almost go without food for the entire day and still not feel hungry. So these stories are there only with the very, very elderly people now. The younger people, the ones in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, do not have any recollection, and all that they have grown up is on hybrid seeds, which is nothing but a bulk and coming along with its chemical footprint. Next. So I'm going to run everyone through some of the images from our campus. These are our rice fields from our campus. They're holding about 20 varieties right now. If you can observe some of the varieties, go back to the earlier slide. Okay, the earlier one. Yeah, sorry. The next one, the rice fields. Yes, this one. So if you observe, most of the varieties are green in color, the leaves, and you see some of the varieties have a purple tinge to it. Now, this is also a rice variety. So we would expect plants to be green in color, but we also have some plants which are not green in color, which was again a beauty in diversity that we're able to find. And so one would think that chlorophyll is the only pigment that creates food, but we also have xanthophyll. So here comes, a little bit of academic lessons for all. The fields are telling us things which we otherwise would miss out. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah. Now here are a few varieties of rice that I have put together. The earlier one. We have our regular white rice. This slide is showcasing traditional gourmet sweets. Okay, we are coming back onto the earlier slide. Here are the rice varieties. I've put this slide because simply to show the diversity that is there in the grain color, the rice grain color itself. So you would have white rice, which we all know. Then there full bran rice, which will be brown in color. We have red rice. Three of them are red rice varieties, and one is a black rice variety. So it's very, very interesting. This unique, we know that brown rice, we understand that brown rice is good for us. Red rice is better for us, and black rice is best for us, for our bodies, because red rice is iron and calcium rich, and black rice is anthocyanin rich, which works as toxin scavengers. Anthocyanins uh, take away all the toxins from your body. So, and they, in addition to being very, very rich in all the nutrients, they also help you clean up your body. And apart from this, the black rice is extremely tasty. This is a particular variety called chakhao, which literally means tasty rice. And it's from Manipur in north of India. And the rice pudding made out of this is very well known and extremely, extremely tasty. Next slide. We now move on to a couple of gourmet dishes that were made in tried out in a very fancy restaurant. The chef was very, very pro native grains. He liked our project, and he said, I'll put together some dishes. So here's a sweet rice made into with coconut, and the other one is a Diwali sweet called anarse, which is made with fermentation and deep frying, and has a little bit of rabdi over here. extremely. So rice, which would be a very basic item in our on our plates, suddenly becomes extremely gourmet if we take the effort for it. The next slide shows images from our farms, harvesting being done. Now, here we see this is a bumper produce from the fields. Here we see vegetables, and the earlier slide was showing a few students can't hold the carrots that were harvested that day, and extremely happy for it. These are our older children from the 11th and 12th batches. All of them are extremely happy to be in the fields and participate and learn. Next slide. Yes, that's the thing about natural farming is also that it needs to be done on a mixed cropping pattern. In modern farming or chemical industrial farming tends to be a monocrop, and in natural farming we have to engage in mixed farming so that the mixed crops help each other, they support each other, just like biodiversity nourishes each other. The mixed cropping also nourishes the plants, and you can see the produce that we are having out here. Very, very healthy and very appetizing. Next. Yeah, and this is on my last slide over here. This is one of the Diwali time when we had put together a display of the sheer diversity that exists in grains and the crop types. So it's a very beautiful display put up at one of the nice places. And there you go. So I'm now ready for any questions or some of the views coming from the students. Jasmine, over to you.
Oh my God, thank you so much for taking us through this journey, Deepa. I really enjoyed the images, and to be honest, I can't wait to come to the farm. Okay, so before we move on to questions, I would like to tell everyone that we also have the students from who have worked on the farm here with us on the call, and I would like to, hear from them about their experiences, and I'm sure everybody would want to hear from them as well. So I'll quickly call upon. We have Siddha Nuda here. So, hey Siddha, can you hear us?
Yeah, hi.
Hi, hey. So, so like Deepa ma'am talked about all these various things that you guys, students involve in, and then we saw you guys holding those carrots which you were not able to hold, and I could see the excitement. I could see you in the photo. So, can you like, and I know that you've been involved with the farm and the initiatives for almost 9 years now. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I've been in Sayadri for 9 years. So that's when we learned to work with our hands, and they've always told us to connect with the earth. So,
That's amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience, because I know that we don't have enough time to talk about all those experiences in that 9 years. So if you can briefly tell us and paint a picture for us about how your experience was when you joined, and when how you are experiencing it now. So back to you.
yeah. So since a kid, I've been working with farms. So in fourth grade itself, we had the small plot where we used to grow small. Our EVS teacher back then used to give us seeds where we used to grow rice. There was rajma, and we had the small plot where we used to do all of this and just experiment. And as we started growing up, my interest started building in EVS. And in 11th grade, we have an option for taking up EVS as an elective subject. And that's when I decided to, take EVS ahead. And thanks to our EVS teacher, he helped us build so much interest in that subject. So we do a lot of things. We have done segregation of waste. We have learned how to work on the farms. We have learned how to connect with nature. we have learned so much about solar panels. So our school has solar panels, and we try and reuse as much as we can, and we don't like to waste. So even making bioenzymes and trying to be as self-sufficient as possible, and shifting from plastic products to in our school to making things right there. So it's like for us, with us, and just stays between us. um, yeah. And so a lot of like the junior school, they have been working on constructing some sort of buildings with plastic bottles, and stuffing plastic in them. And it's still a process right now. And we like right now we're all at home, and we all really miss school. And with the academics, this is one thing that our school really, this extra work is something that our school offers. And it's really interesting to work, and just and you learn so much to work with the community and stay together. Yeah. And it just
I'm
yeah.
I'm sure it's like overwhelming, and it's like I can only imagine like what all like you've gone through, and like thanks for like briefly taking us through that. I know that it's not really possible to talk about everything here. So from our YouTube live, we have Ankita, who is saying Ankita Sinha, who is saying thank you, Deepa. It was very informative and inspiring. Also, while we are talking to the kids, the students of Sahyadri School, there's also one question coming up here. Garima Lunya is asking, do you provide internship so that we can do in our place? Deepa, that would be for you. Would you answer that, please?
Yes, we are very open and very welcoming to interns who would like to come on campus and also maybe practice remotely at their respective locations also. The thing with internship is we prefer that the interns stay for a full cropping cycle. At least 6 months to 1 year would be a better uh, time to come to actually do some learnings. Lesser than that,
Okay.
doesn't really work out, at least with respect to farming. Um,
Okay. Okay, that's. I hope that answers your question, Garima. Thank you so much for that question. And I guess, yes, I also wanted to know that. Okay, so we also so thank you, Deepa, for answering that question. Thank you, Siddha, for taking us through your journey. We also have Gopeshwar here with us. If we can see you, Gopeshwar.
Uh, Hi,
Hi.
hi.
Hi. So, also, like, I understand that you have been also with the school. How long have you been associated with Sahyadri
I'm
School?
a fresher. It's just been a year since I came.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
I think here is a lot because
yeah.
you must have seen a lot. So would you like to share, your experience on like the farming session, like that you go through on the field? We would like to know more about that. If you can
Sure, sure.
briefly take us through that, because I'm keeping a
Yeah.
check on time.
Okay.
So yeah,
So I
over
was
to you.
never really into farming, and yeah, these guys would agree to it. Like, because I always made tantrums and excuses to bunk the farming sessions, but I always had to go. But now, when I look back in the past, I realized it was like really fun, and it was a great experience, and I learned a lot of things. These things which you learn in while doing the hands-on work, like kids don't usually get that opportunity to do. So in our school, we used to we learned how to map the trees in our campuses, and we did the mapping and surveying, and like there's a orchid, the mango orchids in our school, so we went there and mapped the whole thing out there and put the
Wow.
marks and all over there. Then it was really a great experience. Then usually we went usually we did harvesting in our campus. We have rice fields and all, so we used to go over there and harvest every time whenever we had time. And Deepak told us about the farming practices we follow in our school. and how we're connected to the local farmers. So in a campus, like, we have a lot of variety of rices, and there are very rare species also. So usually this is how our farming sessions used to be.
I'm sorry, that was my connection. Can you start from where you left? Sorry,
uh,
apologies.
Again, like,
Yes, you were talking about the mapping, right?
yeah, so in the mapping, like, we used to mark all the tree species, and have those placards type of things to place in a specific region, so that these species are found there, and all the crops we used to do like that. And so that's how we mapped the mango orchids in our school back there. And uh, and we also used to do harvesting, and this harvesting was like, whenever we had time, we used to go there in the fields, and we had a lot of fun time playing in the mud and all. So yeah, and it was a great experience. Then Deepaka usually, she took us to the outreach office whenever she had time, and she told us about these are the specific variety of crops which are found in our school, and we're planning to do this. And then, yeah, so this is how our farming sessions usually were.
Awesome. Sounds so interesting. So, I have one question from Ankit Chopra.
Jasmine?
Vidarbha Marathwada.
Sorry, couldn't hear you. Jasmine?
I wasn't clear. Shall I repeat the question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we have Ankit Chopra who's asking, is organic farming possible in rain deficit regions like Vidarbha Marathwada?
Yes, very much possible. In fact, organic farming, the kind of farming that we practice is natural farming, and I can explain that in a minute. But before that, let us just call some this the kind of farming that we do as being no external input farming. Yes, so we call it natural farming. But the primary, the one of the main benefits of practicing farming is natural farming is that you require very little water, because you do a lot of mulching. You use a lot of mulch material, which helps to conserve water and the moisture within the soil. And for that reason, in any case, whether you are in a water surplus place or a deficit place, your moisture within the ground in the soil is conserved, and it is very suitable for any type of soil type or weather type, simply because it works on conserving the resources, conserving natural resources. Have I answered the question?
Okay. Uh, I to me, yes. I hope Ankit, we answered your question. Okay, so yes, speaking on the same lines, like using natural materials to mulch and use it as a natural fertilizer. We also have Ananya here, who will also share her experience. Hey, Ananya, can you hear us?
Um,
Hi.
Hi. Come here.
So, can you share your experiences from the farm, like on how you and all the students, and how Deepa ma'am used to, and everybody in the Sayadri team used to guide you to, go through the process of making natural fertilizers, and use them on the farm to do organic farming, and like Deepa ma'am says, natural farming. Can you elaborate on that, please?
So, Deepa ma'am will explain a little later what she means fundamentally, the difference between what we practice at school and what organic farming is. And one of the things that we have this produced at school called Jeevamrit, which we call Jeevamrit. It's essentially a bioenzyme. And what it does is when we mix it within the soil, it increases the number of microbes present in the soil, thereby increasing fertility and plant growth. So how that's made is we have two beautiful cows in our campus, and a little calf as well. So we use their cow dung, cow urine, and some jaggery and basin flour and water mainly, and we make this. It's a pretty easy method, but it's proved to be one of the most effective fertilizers for us. Another thing is, being a school, and we have a lot of waste uh, from our daily meals. So we have eggshells, which we dry in the farm, and we crush it into fine powder and mix it within the soil. Again, that increases the fertility. Same with, we use the lemon peels as well as the coconut fibers that we get from the dining hall. So in this method, we try to incorporate waste from our cafeteria and try to use it towards the farm. Another thing that, like there's also, with natural farming, there is a lot of work with plant maintenance. So Deepa ma'am would, in some of our EVS classes, she would ask us to, like, uh, harvest a little bit or thin the crops, and she, like, that will make it grow even more, and we'd be like, do we have to break these leaves off? It would be a very saddening thing to curb plant growth, because we in our minds we would keep removing the sprouting, and she said that will make it flourish even more. But I think it was hard for us to wrap our mind around it. But yeah, so there are many techniques which are employed, and again, they're region specific, so Deepa ma'am will speak about that later. That's pretty much it.
Okay.
Regarding, like, okay, yeah, I think I'm done.
That was really interesting. Like I never knew that we could crush the eggshell and like use it as a powder, because I think
I think we lost you again.
I think we're having some connectivity issues at Jasmine's end.
back to the soil faster. Yeah. Okay. So now we have one more question. Okay. Before that, we get to that question. Deepa ma'am, would you like to bust this myth of what is actually organic farming, and is it actually organic?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked this question, Jasmine. It is one of tends to keep coming up very often, and also the people's understanding differs from person to person, and also apparently region to region and country to country. Now, if one, in the purest sense of the word, organic farming, natural farming should mean the same, which is essentially no external chemical input farming. Yes. Now, why should we not have chemicals in a farm is very clear to us. Because they can be harmful to us. They're synthetic chemicals. They can enter into a body stream, and they can deposit themselves into some parts of our body, and which can eventually may lead to cancer and other lifestyle diseases. It's always best to have food in its most natural form, the way it is available in the forests. Now, the way earlier, the kind of most prevalent kind of farming that happens anywhere around is the chemical based farming, where you go buy fertilizers and pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, a whole lot of poisons to take care of any problems that you might have in your farms, without realizing that those particular poisons may again get into the food stream. So once, if we are clear that we do not want any of these synthetic chemicals, the kind of farming that we would want to do would be the most chemical free farming or toxin free farming. Now, what has happened is, along the way, there has come this movement about organic farming, where you actually stamp it as organic. But what really, again, it has happened is that so many companies have come up with organic pesticides and organic fungicides and organic so many things. And again, based on the country that you live in, the permissible limits of chemicals within those organic uh, portions can vary. So something may be branded as organic, but may still have some chemical residue in it. So this puts a lot of question mark on this organic stamping, so to say, the labeling. So if if we as consumers or we as farmers, producers would want to be free of this kind of any, the hidden chemicals in our food, it we have taken this route of having zero external inputs, whether they are chemical or organic, so to say. And by this, that is what we call as natural farming, which where, as Ananya explained, that we use the ingredients that are available on the farm itself, whether it is a mulch material or whether it is a mix of different plants, which have maybe kind of insect deterrent qualities. Suppose you have neem leaves which can deter insects, or you have chilies, or you have garlic which can deter certain insects. So the knowledge of these things would help you to create potions which would work as repellents rather than as poisons. So in natural farming, what we tend to do is we kind of repel the pests or the diseases. So, and we also try to make the plant, the crop, intrinsically very strong, very healthy by the use of Jivamrut and mulch material. And by it, whatever works for us as human beings also works for plants and vice versa. If we are intrinsically healthy and strong, we would not be so prone to disease and pest attack. So the same logic applies. And this is the kind of, we've got to the core of the issue, and we said that we are not going to use anything which is external to our farms, and we're going to understand how best to use resources within the farm itself. Now, if that means that we need to grow a certain type of plants which may help us in the making those potions, then yes, we do it. If that means that we need to have a cow on campus just so that her cow dung and cow urine is available to us when we need to make these potions, then yes, we do it. This is the kind of farming that we do.
Wow. So that was really news to me, because like with this organic produce culture and the fad, so to say, we on the consumer side, we really don't have the idea and the techniques behind it. And thank you for throwing light on that. This was like really important to talk about today, I guess. So thank you for sharing that. And I think on those lines, we have one question here on the YouTube live, which is kind of related to that, and it's tying two different topics together. It is how has it is from Aditi Singhal. How has integrating native species in regular meals impacted the general student health life on campus? Any prominent changes? So, Deepa, would you like to answer that? Maybe some grades improving or something.
Well, I that's a very nice it's a very nice question, and we're very happy to share are a few experiments that we're trying to increase the diversity on our plate itself in terms of the food types and the food types of the food grains. So a couple of years ago, we started adding the double roti, or locally what we call as bhakri. It's essentially a bread made out of millets, jowar and bajra and ragi, and also at times corn, and also we have red corn on campus, and also the red rice. So we introduced this particular double roti, which gets served very, like hot at lunchtime. And it was essentially, it's a local speciality with the farming communities. It's from the rural side, and it initially started it for the adults on campus to, of course, all of these millets are known as a superfoods. They are extremely nutrition dense, and they tend to have roughage, so it's very good for the body as well. And we started it for the adult community, and they started in a slow way. But before realizing, the older children took to it, and then the younger children took to it, and now we have a rush at lunchtime so that people can get hot steaming bhakris on their plates. And I think this kind of rush also speaks for its taste and its nourishment. And I must say, Jasmine, that the school also continuously engages with the student community, talking and discussing about what we do. So
Mhm.
eventually, there's also that informed learning and know-how. That the action coming from knowing and understanding. And once they like it and then they can see it, they just go for it. So we're very happy to share this um, happy story with everyone.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that question, guys. So I would like, so I'm keeping a time check as well. So I think we can bust two more myths, and let's keep it short because I guess we just have 7 minutes more. So I would really want to know, is this a myth or a fact that organic farming has to be expensive? Deepa, what do you think?
Yes,
Is that
this
a
it's
fact?
it's it's again another question which people have a lot of assumptions and presumptions about this kind of farming. So one is that if you observe in the kind of farming that we do, it requires a lot of engagement on the part of the farmer and involvement. It requires a certain amount of knowledge of the crops, their interactions with each other, their interaction with the seasons. Um, One is that also these days we tend to get food which is out of season. The other day I was having cabbage, which is just out of season, and it's not to be had. Cabbages grow in winter, and we are having at the end of summer. So these non-seasonal things are really don't work with our bodies, nor do they work with the environment, and they can be only done when they are done with hybrid seeds or in a chemical fashion. So one has to be watchful about these things. So the farmer who engages in natural farming, there's far more involvement there, and it's also very labor intensive because when you do natural farming, it's a mixed cropping, and you can't really bring in heavy machinery, and you can't bring in any kind of major automation, which involves much more involvement of the family of the farmer and the people around. Now, in that sense, yes, the produce that comes to your plate in this form is value is worth its weight in gold, literally, because that's what you're putting inside your body. Gold you let's still put on yourself, but not inside your body. But so this is, and it needs to be valued fairly. If any of us, the educated people, were to engage in farming, we would put a certain pricing on our labor, the time that we would put into the farms, right? But only because a farmer tends to come from a non-educated community, we tend to discount their efforts and their time. And so when we are practicing engaging in this kind of farming, we would also like to be fair in terms of the wages that we would want to give to the farmers, and also the prices that we would want to give to the farmers. And also we need to this plus we also need to give an incentive for the farming community who's engaged in farming today to continue doing it for the next generation. Yes, very often I find farmers who are working with me not really wanting this as a profession for their children. So that's an alarming thing for all of us. If they do not practice farming, then the farms will be taken over by industries, and we will be reduced to having food from chemical farms. So, yes, organic farming can be relatively more pricier, but it's not fairly valued. So, if one was to sit down and fairly value it, then it would be much more expensive. We don't really have a commentary on the other goods which get created by the industries, our mobiles, our laptops, our clothes. We don't really have a commentary on that, but we seem to have a very decisive opinion about what should be coming from what prices should be given to the produce coming in the farms. So one has to really reflect upon this, that are we our opinions, are they rightly placed or not? That is one thing.
So, hi. So we are concluding. So I'm coming online. Hey guys,
Yes.
so good to see you. And I think while we are at this topic, I would like also ask you this myth: is it possible if you can just quickly run through that, because we have two more questions from our YouTube feed, and we want to conclude that as well, and we have just 3 minutes. So, is it really possible to know our farmers? Like, is it possible to know them?
Yes, most definitely. I think it should be equated with having a family doctor. Most of us have, this family doctor enjoys a place of pride within our families. It's a go-to person we have. So if on the same lines, if we would were to have a family farmer, whom we could visit, and we could visit the farms and see the produce and engage with his family, his community, and his life, so to say, we would know where, and this is like having total control over where your food comes from, and in the process connecting up with the person getting us that. So most definitely, if it's too not possible, at least try to trace the supply chain. At least try to trace the supply chain from where you get your food. Is it just it does it end at the mall and then there's a black screen, or where does the mall get its food from, grains from, and from where is it sourced locally within the country, within the region, or is it coming from overseas? Does it have a high footprint in terms of fuels and water usage? So just be a little curious about your food chain.
Awesome. Thanks for pointing that out for all of us. So we have two questions from the YouTube session, and we have a guest speaker here as well. She's very interested in organic farming. Okay, so the question is that can so the first question is, can organic farming feed the world's growing population on a large scale? And also the other question is that Deepa, do you know similar schools in and around Bangalore to learn natural farming? So if we can just address these two questions, I think these people have asked it a few minutes ago. So give you a minute.
Yes, well, there is also this notion that chemical-free farming or natural farming would not be able to feed the world. Now, this question I will request all to actually look up what really happens. There's so much food in the world that we would be feeding everyone. No one needs to go hungry. Most of the food, actually, whatever is grown, gets diverted towards livestock. So that's a problem. It also gets diverted to biofuels. That's a problem. So one is that. Second is within the natural farming itself. What we have observed is, I too came from this saying that we are going to have less produce, so we need to watch out, but not really. When you're working in sync with nature, the nature is only responding to you very positively. We have had abundant produce. In fact, we've had produce we had to give away. There was so much produce. So if you go along with nature's cycles, as long as you're sticking with the cycles and the seasonality of things, you will have abundance.
Yeah, I do believe so. And would you know, or maybe if you can tell people how they can connect with you, um, so that like we can conclude the session. And if people have more questions, they can reach out to you and the school.
So, not only us, within our foundation, our schools are located all over the country. We have 6 schools around the country, and all of us have some engagement with farming. But that apart, there are a lot of groups within the country itself who are extremely active in this movement. Most of them are in the grassroots, working with communities. Bangalore's a hotspot in this case. A lot of groups are working there. There is a Sahaja group. Sahaja, which works with farming communities. Then there's Now Darshanam, which works with farming communities. I am available, and there's a huge movement in this direction now.
Okay.
So
So, yeah, thank you for staying available for people who would like to, join in. So that's Deepa More, our guest speaker, and she's happy to connect with anybody who would want to get in touch with them. You can always comment in the YouTube section, and we will try to connect you. So just thank you note, actually I'm really overwhelmed to, and it's my honor to like know you guys, and I'm really looking forward to like meeting you in person after this pandemic. And thank you for bringing us this crucial topic about organic farming. And thank you for sharing your experiences, guys, Siddha, Gopeshwar, and Ananya. And Deepa ma'am, there's so much to learn from you, and I hope we can do more of these things. And if you if 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 we have missed any questions on the YouTube live, we will try to get back to you. And that's the end of the session here.
Thank you to Fridays for Future and putting this all together. Thank you so much. Thanks from all of us over here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay, so we would need some technical help here. Do we end this session? Okay, so I'm ending this session. Thank you, everyone. I'll talk to you all soon later.